us. But first, to talk about that devilish thing that is the swamp, a good friend of mine, former colleague in my old Breitbart days. He is, of course, Peter Schweizer. He goes and hides away somewhere in the boonies with his team of superb researchers, and then a year or two later he emerges with a book that just changes everything. I'm going to give you some titles now. Throw them all out. Extortion, Secret Empires, and now the most important one, which I hope is doing great guns. It's called Profiles, not in Courage, Profiles in Corruption. Peter Schweizer, welcome to America First.
Seb, it's great to be here with you as always.
He's the president of the Government Accountability Institute. How's the book doing?
Book is doing great. We're actually #1 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Sorry, what? New York, other people, are there snowflakes melting in New York right now as you say that? I'm sure there are. We're going to talk about the book. The important thing to note about you, let's talk a little bit, for those who are not familiar with who Peter Schweizer is or your organization, the Government Accountability Institute. Let me first say that maybe this new book is an exception, because here you really go after the Democrats, especially what I call, the organized crime cartel that is the Biden family. And we'll talk about that maybe in the next segment. But your reputation, and this is, demonstrated by all the stuff that you've done in your books and a Breitbart, is you skewer whoever needs to be skewered.
Right.
Whether it's GOP establishment, whether it's Democrats, you don't care. If they're corrupt, you're going to call them out. Is that your MO?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The first big breakthrough came with the book Throw Them All Out, where we looked at insider trading on the stock market by politicians. They were sitting on the Armed Services Committee, or they were writing, the Obama health care amendments.
All the legislation with all the pork in it.
Exactly. And they were literally trading stocks in companies that were going to be affected by the legislation they were introducing. And that includes both Republicans and Democrats. Same thing with extortion. That talked about how politicians have this model. They have to create a demand for their own services. So how do they do that? Well, they basically do that to extort money. Most of the money in politics is not because companies want to give money to politicians, is they feel like they have to. They're being shaken down by politicians.
Otherwise, something negative will happen to them in the next legislative round.
Exactly. It's protection money. It's the old protection racket.
Oh, those windows in your store. What a shame it would be if those windows were suddenly broken overnight. Wouldn't you like those windows not to be broken, Mr. Shopkeeper?
That's right. And that happens in Washington, D.C. all the time.
That, by the way, is the definition of people use the word racketeering and they don't know what it is. Racketeering is when you get paid to solve a problem that you actually create. That's the legal definition of racketeering.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, I've looked at both sides in Secret Empires, the last book that I had that came out in 2018. We looked at the deals that the Chinese government was doing with the Biden family. And also the Mitch McConnell and Elaine Chao. And my point is, corruption is not a D problem or an R problem. It's a human problem. And it's one of the reasons that I'm a small government conservative. We need to have a strong, effective government. But the reason we want deregulation, for example, is the more you deregulate, the less opportunity you have for bureaucrats and politicians to shake down the private sector to enrich themselves.
So your work is concentrated on the swamp. I want to this may be a little bit out of your comfort zone, but I doubt it is. Big week. We have the president acquitted forever, Nancy, in the Senate. And we have, just a couple of days ago, both Vindman brothers physically escorted off the grounds of the White House complex, including the individual who testified against his commander-in-chief in uniform, saying, I was disturbed by his foreign policy decisions, as if that lieutenant colonel gets to decide American foreign policy. And the ambassador who testified against his president, Ambassador Sondland, being recalled from his cushy post in Brussels. That, for me, is a sea change moment in pushing back against the deep state, a phrase I didn't use in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the administration when I was inside the White House. I felt a little bit like tinfoil Hattie. But at the end of the day, when I saw it with my own eyes, inside the NSC, inside the closed meetings we were having in SCIFs, and then you see the attempt to remove a president from office by people who are 100 rungs beneath him as government employees. What do you think of the term deep state, Peter Schweizer?
I think deep state is a good term. I use the term a permanent political class.
Yep.
That works. You're talking about the same thing. You're talking about unelected, largely unknown people who control the levers of power.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing and we've all been sort of living through this the last 3 or 4 years. You elect a president who comes in and says, these are the policies that I want enacted. Most people assume, okay, the policies are going to be enacted. No, they're not. The bureaucracy is going to resist. The bureaucracy is going to try to outlast elected officials and to serve their own interests. There was a book done by academics at Johns Hopkins University about 5 or 6 years ago called What Washington Gets Wrong. And it included academic survey of thousands of members of the senior executive service and the bureaucracy. And if you go back and look at that...
The SES are like the highest-ranking civil service. It's the aristocracy of U.S. government.
Yes, exactly.
Cannot be got rid of. They're like the barons and the baronets of the U.S. government.
Yes, and they asked them in this survey, this is a survey done by these two academics, they asked them, if a policymaker, an elected policymaker, pursued a policy that the public wanted, that was constitutional and legal, but you were opposed to, would you resist it? About 67% said yes, they would resist it.
This isn't an academic publication.
This is an academic publication, two professors at Johns Hopkins. And the point is that this notion that the civil service is just there to respond to what policymakers is not true. There's some good ones out there, but there is deeply embedded, particularly in the senior ranks, people have power, they don't want to give it up, and they are serving their own self-interests institutionally, what they see as the national interest, rather than what elected officials want, and it's a huge problem.
My friends, this isn't just an academic survey or a response to an academic survey. I saw it myself. I cannot tell you how many meetings in secure facilities in the White House, the highest level of decision-making in the most powerful government in the world, and we're sitting there, individuals from the White House, senior directors of the National Security Council, outstations on the secure VTC, video teleconference, you name it. It's the Joint Chiefs, CIA, DIA, and an embassy in the Middle East, and you sit there for an hour and a half, and nobody mentions the president's name. Nobody mentions the president's objective with regard to the issue that we are discussing. And then I go, the guy with the funny accent after an hour and a half goes, hey guys, do you know what the president said about ISIS yesterday or what his objective is in China? And I have to remind these people who think, president's president, they'll come and go. I'm an SES. I'm a senior director. I'm going to decide. That is the definition of the swamp, the deep state, the permanent bureaucracy, and that's what we're draining right now with President Trump. I'm Sebastian Gorka, back with Peter Schweizer in a moment. We're talking to the president of the Government Accountability Institute, author of the latest book, Profiles in Corruption. Follow him, Peter Schweizer, on Twitter. That's SCHWEIZER, Schweizer, and peterschweizer.com. You failed to remind me, Peter, of, I think, the most important book you published, which I think helped to get Donald Trump elected. Clinton Cash. Clinton Cash. And I'll tell you why it was so important, for two reasons. Somebody very, very smart person took that book that you documented all the corruption of the Clinton mob, and I will call it a mob, from Uranium One to the Haitian telephone fraud, on and on and on. And you did two things. You turned it into a graphic novel. Genius. You turned it into a comic book, and I know the guys who did it, superb comic book, and then you turned it into a 60-minute video for free on YouTube that before the election, I blasted it out everywhere I could repeatedly. And I said to people, if you know kids who are going to vote for Hillary, get them to watch the first 6 minutes of this movie. Because that one story, it was Haiti, right?
Yes.
The Haitian bilking of a country recovering from a natural disaster. And Hillary and Bill's buddies getting millions of dollars for these pay-for-play phone schemes. I said, if you watch that 6 minutes, you'll never vote for Hillary Clinton in your life. So good for you. Clinton cash, massively important, Peter.
Yeah, and not to mention that Hillary's brother got involved with the gold mine in Haiti.
Unbelievable.
Exactly. Yeah, no, look, so much of what happens in Washington is about following the money. You look at what's gone on with the push for impeachment. It's not only an effort to get the president, it's also a fundraising mechanism for Democrats because I think they have very little to raise money on. Right. I mean, what are they going to look to? What is the policy issue?
Medical insurance for illegal aliens.
Yeah,
let's raise donations for that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
taking away your guns.
Yeah, exactly. You need some mechanism, and that mechanism became, we are going to get this guy, but we need your money to help us get this guy. So. That's the best policy, I think. Follow the money.
We're going to take your calls on 833-33-GORKA. That's 833-334-6752. Our text line, Patriot Mobile text line, is 703-869-1262. That's 703-869-1262. Can I make a suggestion to you in the last couple of minutes we have with you, Peter?
Yeah.
Next book. Somebody needs to chronicle what Lindsey Graham was talking about.
Yes.
FBI, DOJ, CIA, NSA, Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Some great books are out there. Greg Jarrett, Dan Bongino, who else has written good books on this? But there really needs to be a chapter and verse full of the footnotes like you guys do, because I can't think. Rush Limbaugh mentioned it this morning on his show. They instigated a counterintelligence operation against a presidential campaign without one piece of evidence that a crime occurred.
Right.
That's the most shocking thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's remarkable. And when you put it together, when you sort of put it on the same bookshelf and you lay out the volumes to what happened with the Mueller investigation and what the FBI was doing, I mean, this is a pattern. This is not one example where a couple of guys went rogue and, okay, we've got to slap a few wrists and deal with it. This has been a systematic effort over the course of several years.
And multiple agencies.
Yes, and multiple agencies. And really, at the end of the day, if you are somebody who is institutionally in the FBI, the worst thing you could say about the president is he's unconventional. He doesn't do things the way that we've done them in the past.
Which is why we chose him for president.
Exactly, and is certainly not grounds for removal. It's not even remotely close to grounds for removal. So I agree with you. That story has to be chronicled. I don't know if I'm the one to do it. I'm still just focusing on this book. But yes, I think that's a great suggestion.
All right. I'll talk to the people who support you. We'll have words with Peter's backers. I know who they are. We'll whisper in some ears. The book is called Profiles in Corruption. Just quickly, in the last 30 seconds we got with you, Peter. How many members of Biden's family profited from his nexus to politics, as you chronicle in the book?
5.
So it's not just Hunter Biden.
Right.
Who is it?
It's his brother James, his brother Frank, his sister Valerie, and his son-in-law, who's married to his daughter Ashley. All cashed in major ways. Government contracts, foreign deals with foreign governments, special access to the White House, which gained them special briefings for investors and family businesses. It goes on and on and on. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it.
It's not the fact that he talks about corn pop and his hairy legs. It's the fact that Joe Biden is one of the most corrupt politicians in our history. Get this book right now, Profiles in Corruption by Peter Schweizer, and follow him on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is America First on the Salem Radio Network.